Hey everyone, well we're into the top 5. That was the great Jimi Hendrix's All Along the Watchtower, coming in at number 5 on Guitar World Magazine's Top 100 Solos of All Time. Too much guitar goodness in this one to just do the solos, so I of course did the whole thing, as you've just watched. I wanted to do this one in one take with no edits. I did make a few close-up edits, but it's still the same take. I wanted to play it just the way that Jimi played it, adjusting tone and volume on the fly, sometimes both at the same time. It keeps one busy for sure. Some of the verse fills I just improvised here and there, but I tried my best to cover the solos themselves as close as I could get. And since I did it in one take, of course there's absolutely no way to get a slide on my finger fast enough to do the slide part of the solo. Thankfully, the backing track that I used was kind enough to provide it, except for all the other guitar parts. Awesome, I thought, when I first listened to it. I'll just do something else there. So I just played some notes, the same notes, but in octaves, finger-picked octaves up and down the neck, and I think it sounded pretty good, all things considered. Man, do I love playing Jimi Hendrix. People often ask me what are my favorite solos from this list. What are the most difficult to learn and play? What are the easiest? And so on and so forth. Nobody ever seems to ask me which are the most fun. So I'm going to tell you, Jimi Hendrix is the most fun to play. His playing was just so bloody creative and interesting. Few players in history, maybe David Gilmour, could do so much with so little. And what I'm talking about here is Jimi's use of the minor pentatonic scale. 5 notes, and their octaves. That's usually all Jimi ever used. Sure, he'd throw in passing notes here and there, as he does in this one, but for the most part, he's sticking to the pentatonic and those 5 basic notes. Just some incredible creativity in his playing, but that pretty much goes without saying. And it's damn fun to play, like I already said. I used to get so much pleasure out of more of a shred style of guitar playing, ripping blistering fast scale runs and arpeggios up and down the neck, nailing every note as cleanly and as precisely as possible. In my shredder mindset, that was real guitar playing. That took the most skill. Everything else was beneath it as far as talent went. I don't think that way anymore. I don't think that it's the pinnacle of guitar playing anymore. Is it hard? Sure, it's hard. Taking 20 notes and ripping through them at breakneck speed, nailing every one of them perfectly and in time, that takes a lot of skill. But you know what else takes a lot of skill? Taking those same 20 notes, slowing them down, giving each one of them a voice. Be it a bend or a pre-bend or a touch of vibrato or a little slide in or a little slide out or sometimes two or three of them all at the same time. I can honestly say, and I don't think that it's age speaking here, but maybe a little bit of wisdom, because my musical tastes haven't changed and I still love to shred, but I gain more satisfaction nailing 20 perfectly bent notes than nailing those same 20 notes in a fast scale run these days. The way I see it now is about pleasure and pain in my playing. Shredding is pain. Shredding hurts the brain. You have to think too much. There's satisfaction in shredding a difficult passage, but there's very little pleasure. Playing Hendrix is nothing but pleasure. Nailing every one of those solos and every one of those bends within those solos feels incredibly good. And I guess that comes down to what's known as playing with feel, a different kind of feel, not just putting feel into the notes, but feeling good yourself about how you went about playing those notes. Like I said, a different kind of feel, I suppose. Feeling good about what you're playing, gaining pleasure from your guitar, if you know what I'm talking about. My whole outlook towards the guitar has changed dramatically over the past year, 2 years doing this list. Guitarists that I maybe had a little less respect for than I should have, I now have tremendous respect for. B.B. King and Eric Clapton and Duane Allman and Dickie Betts and David Gilmour and Jeff Beck. Basically like feel kings of the guitar. I've definitely learned that the mastery of bending notes is a skill that is every bit as difficult to master as shredding 50 notes a second. It's a skill that I'm still working on and one that I intend to master when all is said and done. That's my new obsession and goal as a guitar player. I want to be a master of the bent note. That's what's important to me now in my own playing, not so much speed. Anyway, onwards. Now, we all know that All Along the Watchtower was originally written by Bob Dylan. And if you didn't know that, well, now you do. After a brief foray into a bit more of a harder edge sound in his music in the mid-60s with electric guitars and full band, Dylan returned to a sound closer to what made him famous in the first place with his acoustic and country folk-tinged album John Wesley Harding in 1967. And it was from this album that his brilliant classic All Along the Watchtower stemmed. Before the album was even released, Jimi Hendrix had his hands on it. And within 2 months of Dylan recording it, Jimi had started working on his version of All Along the Watchtower. Hendrix was a huge fan of Bob Dylan, but especially, like most Dylan fans, his mastery of weaving words into beautiful and poetic lyrics, something that Jimi Hendrix felt was one of his own shortcomings as a musical artist. When he got his hands on the pre-release of Dylan's John Wesley Harding, he was determined to find a track from it to cover. Initially, Jimi settled on I Dreamed I Saw St. Augustine. He soon changed his mind, however, when he started putting together ideas for All Along the Watchtower. The lyrics especially grabbed Jimi Hendrix's ear, with a tale that kind of drops you right in the middle of its story at the beginning and then leaves you hanging at the end. It was a powerfully and beautifully written song. This, Hendrix decided, would be the track that he would cover and eventually make his own. And make his own, he most definitely did. I would argue that no cover in history has been owned by another artist other than the original artist, and in this case more so, in quite the same way as All Along the Watchtower was owned by Jimi Hendrix. It didn't hurt that the track wasn't a well-established hit, or even fairly well known at the time of his remake. Like I said, Hendrix started his work on it only 2 months after Dylan recorded it and had his own version released a short 6 months after Bob Dylan's. Plus, Dylan's wasn't a hit. The song failed to chart. Hendrix's version would chart, however. It was actually his only top 40 hit in America. I guess technically you could say Jimi Hendrix was a one-hit wonder. However, before its release, Hendrix's recording of All Along the Watchtower was fraught with difficulty, as Hendrix was somewhat obsessed with the track and could not get down on tape his ideal vision of what he wanted to accomplish with the song. This dragged on for months, and bassist Noel Redding got so frustrated with the amount of time put into this one track that he finally bailed and walked out of the recording studio, leaving Hendrix to play the bass parts himself on the recording. Right-handed, mind you, as there were only Noel's right-handed basses in the studio. Jimmy was so good, he could play both ways actually, he was not only left-handed. He would spend about 3 months in and out of the studio tinkering with the track, overdubbing guitar parts, rearranging the solos, changing guitar parts, so on and so forth, until he was finally happy with the end result. And like I said, that end result would give Jimmy his first top 40 hit and a career-defining moment in history. He had taken Bob Dylan's simple 3-chord folk song and weaved absolute magic from it. So definitive was Hendrix's version of All Along the Watchtower that from that moment on, Dylan himself changed the way that he performed it and copied Hendrix's arrangement. It was now a Jimi Hendrix song, and most people to this day consider it a Jimi Hendrix song. So complete was his transformation of Dylan's work. Lots of artists have covered Bob Dylan over the years, but I dare say none so forcefully as Hendrix did with All Along the Watchtower some 53 years ago. It is a timeless classic and an absolute joy to play and to listen to, like I already said. And that is all I've got to say about that one. Thank you for watching, as usual. I hope you're well in your little guitar corner of the world. I hope you like my take on All Along the Watchtower. Finally getting to Comfortably Numb up next at number 4. Been looking forward to this one for a while. I can't wait to tackle it, and we'll see you guys in a week or two with it. And you guys take care of yourselves. Ciao.